baby needs to grow.
It's 2000 hours in Banjul. This is GRTS News, broadcasting for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. Our top stories this hour. His Excellency President Adama Barrow meets officials of the National Human Rights Commission and executive members of his National People's Party at the State House in Banjul. COVID-19 coverage in the African media. Journalists from 12 African countries meet in the Senegalese capital Dakar for a regional conference discussing the handling of the pandemic in the African press. And find out later in the news why the initial date for the submission of the much-awaited TRRC report has been postponed to a later date. Away from home, the Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara and longtime rival Laurent Gbagbo meet for the first time in more than a decade. And we will find out how catfish farming is fast becoming a popular venture in Nigeria. In sports, Banjul pulls out a vital win against the Gambia Armed Forces to boost their chance of a mid-table finish in the GFF First Division League. Well, details of that and much more coming ahead. Great to have you with us. My name is Momo Njai. It's great to have you here. We begin with His Excellency President Adama Barrow, who received top officials of the National Human Rights Commission at the State House on Monday to discuss the country's human rights status. In a separate engagement, President Barrow also received party executives of the National People's Party. Samuel Barr tells us more.
The President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, on Wednesday received members of the National Human Rights Commission, led by the Commission's Chair Emmanuel Diouf. Their mission to the Presidency is the usual courtesy call that the Commission pays to the head of state annually to discuss the state of human rights issues in the country.
By our mandate, we are supposed to meet with the President and discuss the state of human rights affairs in the country and also talk about the activities of the National Human Rights Commission. And in discussing issues, we'll raise pertinent human rights issues of concerns. And this is usually a very frank talk. That is why everybody is excluded, so that we can talk to the President, tell him what our findings are. So it was a friendly discussion.
Diouf said the human rights situation in the country is improving greatly because human rights issues is always work in progress.
The human rights situation in the country, I must say, it's good if you compare it to where we're coming from. If you compare it to where we're coming from, human rights is always work in progress. That is why you have a Human Rights Commission. We monitor, we investigate, and we monitor the prisons. We receive complaints of human rights violations, and if you just to answer your question, it's a much improved situation as we had before.
The Commission, in another development, also engaged President Barrow and party executives of the National People's Party on the Commission's concerns regarding the upcoming elections.
We are at a very important and crucial period in the history of this country. It is election year, the election circle. So we also met with the NPP. We are meeting with all the political parties. We've started that yesterday. Tomorrow we'll even meet with the UDP. So the second part of the meeting also gave us the opportunity to talk to His Excellency and his party executives about our concerns concerning the elections. As you know, elections they evoke a lot of emotions and passions. And the whole process of registration, the whole process, we're going through the campaign period very soon. And it's important that we have a level playing field. It's very important that party leaders talk to their supporters, their party militant stalwarts. We as the National Human Rights Commission, we monitor the media. We monitor social media, and we have observed that there is a lot of profanities, hate speech, bordering on incitement to violence. So this is what we were also discussing.
His Excellency, the party leader and Secretary General, welcomed the initiative, and he indicated, of course, that as a party and as a party leader, and the President of the Republic, it is responsibility to ensure that the elections is conducted in an atmosphere of peace, in an atmosphere of free, fair, and transparent, and that to that effect, as we move forward, all party leaders and politicians must be responsible and must be responsive, and they must be accounted for their actions and their deeds and their comments.
The National Human Rights Commission has commenced an interface with party leaders on the need to talk to their supporters to dissociate themselves on issues that may lead to violence. Samuel Ba, GRTS.
A two-day COVID-19 training on the theme handling of the COVID-19 pandemic in the African media is underway in the Senegalese capital, Dakar. The forum, which brings together participants from 12 African countries, is organized by the African Union Broadcasting Network to exchange ideas and form a strong force in the fight against the coronavirus, with a focus on the continent's response to the pandemic. GRTS's Mama J is attending the training and filing this report from Dakar.
The COVID-19 Back to Basics Forum, championed by the African Union Broadcasting, seeks to equip participants with the requisite skills and knowledge to learn the basis of the global virus in order to effectively sensitize the people accurately. The Chief Executive Officer of the African Union Broadcasting, Gregory Ndanjaka, remarked that COVID-19 has caused a lot of destructions in the world and claimed many lives, hence the need to find a more strategic approach to fight the global pandemic. According to the AUB CEO, more than 4 million people have lost their lives to the deadly virus. While scientists are hoping for a miracle breakthrough in finding a permanent cure for the COVID-19, the media should endeavor to raise awareness and provide accurate information to the public, Gregory added. Many countries in Africa are currently going through the third wave of the COVID-19, with Southern Africa as the most hard hit, said the representative from the World Health Organization, Dr. Christian Itama, who joined the program via online. Dr. Itama is concerned that West Africa is also experiencing a surge in new cases of the coronavirus. While calling on people to adhere to the COVID-19 regulatory measures, Dr. Itama stated that the World Health Body is instrumental in supporting countries have access to the COVID-19 vaccines. According to WHO's Christian Itama, more than $1 billion funds have been mobilized to help in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic this year. The joint AUB UNESCO seminar, which attracted journalists from 12 different countries in Africa, centered on how the African media handled the COVID-19 pandemic. The Deputy Director General of CRTV and AUB expert Emmanuel Wangobi took the participants through various modules such as the contribution of the media in the fight against COVID-19, the act of telling the COVID-19 story, and COVID-19 reporting, challenging conventional journalistic thinking and approaches. The modules also include the importance of science in telling the COVID-19 story, factual versus scientific information on COVID-19, as well as the misinformation and disinformation in reporting COVID-19 pandemic. The Capacity Enhancement Forum also avail men and women in the business of news to share their experiences and narrate COVID-19 stories in their respective countries. Mama J, GRTS, Dakar, Senegal.
The chairman of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, Dr. Lamin Sise, has briefed the press on the submission of the Commission's final report. Following the end of public hearings of the Truth Commission on May 28, 2021, the Commission, which was set up to probe into alleged human rights violations during the former regime, has been busy compiling its final report for submission to the President of the Republic of the Gambia, pursuant to Section 29(1) of the 2017 TRRC Act. The date for the submission of the report was initially scheduled for July 12, 2021, but later postponed to another date. Here is an excerpt.
The Attorney General and Minister of Justice and the Office of the President, after consultations, agreed on 12 July 2021 as the date for the submission of the final report to the President. However, the Office of the President informed them subsequently that due to the previously arranged engagement, the President was not available to receive the Commission on the 12th of July and therefore proposed the new date. Accordingly, and following a meeting between the Chairman of the Commission and the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the Commission suggested a new date of Thursday, 30 September 2021 as the date of submission of the final report of the TRRC to the President. The Attorney General, in his capacity as the line minister for the TRRC, confirmed the new date on behalf of the Office of the President. He assured the Chairman of the TRRC that the government will fully fund the extension requested to complete the report. Considering that the Commission received 2,600 statements and heard testimonies from 393 witnesses covering 16 themes, the report writing process was a daunting task for the Commission. The work to be continued during the 8-week extension period involves the finalization of the following: 16 volumes, each containing overview, findings, and recommendations on the following: A, soldiers with a difference; B, 11 November 1994 extrajudicial killings of security officers; unlawful killing of former Finance Minister Usman Koro Sise; the convoy of the President, accidents and deaths; April 10 and 11, 2000 student demonstrations; attacks on freedom of expression and the media; attacks on religious freedoms; the junglers; unlawful killings, tortures, and human rights violations; the Presidential Alternative Treatment HIV/AIDS program; sexual and gender-based violence; President witch hunt exercise; enforced disappearances; killing of West African migrants; and the 3 institutional hearings. The first on National Intelligence Agency, NIA, the second on prisons, and the third on the justice sector institutions.
TRRC Chairman there, Dr. Lamin Sise, briefing the press on the submission of the Commission's final report. Moving on, The UNFPA has donated 400,000 examination gloves to the Ministry of Health at a handing over ceremony held at the Central Medical Stores in Kotu. Jenke Ture reports that the surgical gloves were provided by the Chinese government, which aims to support the ministry's effort to contain the spread of COVID-19.
These are the latest intervention to the Ministry of Health with support to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The medical gloves worth over $3 million was procured by UNFPA with funding from the Chinese government. Kunne Adenei, UNFPA country director, said the gesture came at a time when COVID-19 crippled the healthcare system of the Gambia, adding his office will continue to support national COVID-19 efforts.
These gloves will be used for infection prevention and control, but also protection of health workers as they carry out their duties. But this is only the beginning, and in the coming weeks, as part of the project, medical equipment, including delivery beds, anesthetic machines, ultrasound scanners, oxygen concentrators, which is very important for the COVID response, suction pumps, thermometers, blood pressure machines, and other equipment will be arriving in the country.
The gesture also demonstrates the strong synergy of the international community in supporting the Gambia to strengthen its public health sector. His Excellency Ma Jianchun is the Chinese ambassador to the Gambia.
The Chinese government and the people fully understand, attach the great importance to the challenges faced by the Gambia in the field of the health care. China is willing to help Gambia improve its medical and health level through medical equipment and medicine donation.
The personal protective equipment, numbering 400,000 pairs of gloves, is an equipment that protects workers against health or safety risks on the job and reduces employee exposure to hazards. The Minister of Health, Dr. Ahmadulamin Samate, commended the role of UNFPA and the Chinese government for their unflinching support to the government of the Gambia.
Ambassador Omar, Mr. Kunle, these gloves today to us are like diamond. We know what these are meant for. We know the value of this. So to me today, these are better than diamond because these go a long way to make the work of the health workers easy.
It's #1 protective equipment that almost all health workers must wear before they start any procedures. It's so vital that without it, most, if not all, the procedures happening at health facilities will come to a halt.
Minister Samate further highlighted the significance of the items and urged beneficiaries to make good use of the gloves.
We also want to appeal for rational use of these gloves. Now that we have so many, over 400,000 pairs, it doesn't mean that they should be wasted. Let us use them rationally so that they can serve the purpose for which they are brought, so that they can stay long, so that when we need them, we have them available. And now that we've all known they are available, we use the opportunity to urge all heads of health institutions, government health institutions, of course, to ensure that these gloves are available in their facilities. They are here, but if they are not requested for to get to the facility, they will not get there.
This cooperation will further strengthen the national COVID-19 response and ensure the continuity of essential health services for all people across the country amid the pandemic. Jenke Ture, GRTS News.
17 fashion designers were on Wednesday certified after completing 6 months of intensive training in fashion designing as part of a European Union-funded program under the Youth Empowerment Project. The program, as Baba Silla tells us, is meant to empower youths to become successful entrepreneurs.
Challenging and intensive skill acquisition program finally concludes with significant achievement for these young aspiring entrepreneurs who are now ready to explore the world of fashion and design. The program, which is designed to empower young entrepreneurs in managing small-scale ventures and startup enterprises, have graduated a significant number of youth who are carving a strong foundation as entrepreneurs in various sectors of business. Deputizing for the project coordinator, Mohammed Danso, highlighted the basic concept of the project and what it intends to achieve.
What is really unique about this fashion cohort is, so like I say, it wasn't gender bias. Because it was an all female cohort throughout. All the 17 participants were female. So the Startup Incubator 6 months program is designed to provide entrepreneurs with experimental knowledge, practical learning and networks to allow them to further impact their businesses and communities through innovative approaches.
Delivering her inspirational message, the lead fashion designer Ndefa Tusise challenged the graduates to learn and practice in their exploration of the dynamic world of fashion and design.
So we also know from the 12 of you are part of the Export Advancement Program for the fashion sector that we are implementing together with our partners at the Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency, GIPA. So we really encourage you to take advantage of that as well, because it also supports you in terms of your agenda to further enhance whatever you're doing, but also in terms of linkages in terms of when it comes to exports. In terms of what next, really, again, our doors are open at ITC, and I'm sure I speak also on behalf of our colleagues at the Ministry of Trade in terms of support that you would require going forward.
Fatim Benga Jallo represented the Youth Empowerment Project, which designed the skill building program.
So we really encourage you, again, make use of the knowledge that you, and I wouldn't say only knowledge, but also the tools that you have been able to learn through this program, but also really work together, and I would say also be ambassadors in your sector, but also in terms of the communities where you come from, because we also always encourage that people we work with also see how best can they give back to the communities that they come from in terms of whatever they have been able to learn.
The graduate also took the platform to share the challenges faced in the program and experience they went through during the intensive 6-month mentorship. Unraveling its latest business startup graduates, the Youth Empowerment Program continues to support youth ventures into gainful skills industries, providing expertise through mentorship aimed at boosting self-employment. For GRTS News, I am Bawa Silla.
In a bid to revamp the technical and tertiary vocational education system, the TVET committee recently held a 12th ordinary committee meeting at the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology. The role of the committee is to support the monitoring and implementation of the TVET Roadmap 2020-2024. To ensure an effective transmission or transition, the ministry is proposing the introduction of changes to increase its oversight of the TVET roadmap and a broader implementation of the policy. Let's take a listen.
Is in full, because TVET is just the contracted form, is technical vocational education and training. And let me just go back to the mandate of the ministry, that is Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology. Our key mandate is to build the human capital of this country. That is, we are the ones responsible for producing the employment sector. That is to produce the people for the labor market. That is our mandate, and you know it's a big task. Now, we come to realize that, in fact, across the world, TVET has been seen as very instrumental in employment creation of the youths. So since this current ministry, especially the leadership of Honorable Badara Ejuf, our current Minister for Higher Education, in fact, the first thing he told us was he wanted to revamp the TVET sector, because he thinks since he was going to school, people have been doing the same things the same way. For example, GTTI has been there, but nothing much had changed. So he thought we need to transform the sector. And what he did in order to do that, he thought many youths will finish WASC, maybe 9 A's, 9 credits, but then they will end up going to do medicine because they do not have access to engineering, or they want to do this critical engineering. So what he thought of, he said he has to build a university of applied science and technology. That is USET. I'm sure currently you've been hearing USET. That's the idea. But TVET in general is the skills sector, and no country we thought can develop without the skills personnel. And that is not just so-called skills, but quality and relevant skills to be able to respond adequately to the labor markets. Not only the local labor market, but even internationally. So basically, and the idea behind this roadmap is that the roadmap was developed in collaboration with ITC, that is International Trade Center, which is EU funded. And then in collaboration with the ministry, they supported the ministry, they developed the roadmap. And then, of course, they are also supporting the TVET unit of the ministry to implement this roadmap. The Honorable Minister, he lobbied this project from the UNESCO COECA, and then he successfully got this funding. And then COECA has agreed to fund, for the first time, the national TVET policy for the country. Now that with the policy in place, which is, of course, about to be validated soon, we realize that we'll better all under one governance structure, and then there will be proper coordination.
That was Madam Fatou Jane, the head of the TVET unit at the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, speaking to GRTS's Baba Silla. You're watching GRTS News. Stay tuned as there is a lot more to come, including international news and sports right after the short break. Stay tuned.
Such exceptional prices, impossible to miss the Butty Days. Butty Days is the unmissable appointment of Butty Mat. From the 17th to the 31st of July, take advantage of exceptional discounts up to 50% off on several product family. The best quality, price ratio for the best construction is at Butty Mat. So don't wait anymore. Let's hit the road for the Butty Days. Butty Mat, everything for construction, from foundation to finishing.
Hello! There's a new update from your favorite GSM operator, AfriCell.
For all of you that have struggled to buy cash power beyond $7,000, AfriCell has done it again. The limit to buy cash power is now up to $30,000. Oh yes, $30,000.
Buy all the cash power you want from your AfriMoney account by dialing *777#.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
It's an amazing offer. AfriMoney just got way better. The threshold for cash in and cash out on your AfriMoney has been increased.
Where it used to be 10,000 per transaction, now it has been increased to 30,000. Meaning, your AfriMoney account, you can now withdraw and deposit up to $30,000 at once.
Cashing in and out just got 3 times easier. For more info, call 777.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
Welcome back. We start the internationals in Cote d'Ivoire, where President Alassane Ouattara and longtime rival Laurent Gbagbo have held their first meeting in more than a decade. The meeting between the president and his predecessor is part of efforts to ease political tensions in the West African country. Cote d'Ivoire plunged into a bitter civil war over 10 years ago that saw over 3,000 deaths and massive displacement. The conflict follows Gbagbo's refusal to concede defeat after losing the 2010 elections. The former Ivorian leader returned from exile in June this year after the International Criminal Court (ICC) dropped charges against him. Ouattara and Gbagbo have vowed to push for peace and reconciliation.
I think that it is important for everyone to understand that we decided that it is important to re-establish trust and to make sure that all Ivorians reconcile and trust each other. These events were painful, there were too many deaths, and this should be behind us, and we should now work towards the future on cohesion and reconciliation.
I am hoping that from time to time we can have more meetings such as this, in which we will clear the air in the country. As far as I'm concerned, I insisted with the president on the subject of the prisoners who were arrested at the time of the crisis of 2010-2011 who are still in prison. I told the president I was their leader and I'm not today. and they are in prison, and I would like for the president to do what he can do to liberate them.
United States now, where the first hearing into the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol has been held. The U.S. House Committee is leading the investigations. 4 police officers told lawmakers they were beaten and chanted with racial insults. The officers called rioters terrorists who were engaged in what they called an attempted coup. CGTN's Nathan King has more from outside the U.S. Congress.
An emotional few hours of testimony. You know, there have been lots of political arguments about exactly what happened here on January the 6th in the months that have followed, but this really took us back to the day, the violence, the confusion, and the sheer horror about what could have unfolded had not these brave officers intervened. One talked of 4 tours in Iraq and never facing anything like this. Another talked of being called the N-word. The African-American officer said he never heard that leveled at him in his years of uniform. And then there is this officer who basically feared for his life, was beaten unconscious by the mob. He was electrocuted with his own taser, and they tried to steal his gun and shoot him.
I was grabbed, beaten, tased, all while being called a traitor to my country. I was at risk of being stripped of and killed with my own firearm, as I heard chants of kill him with his own gun. I could still hear those words in my head today.
Now, many of the members of Congress sat silently, not known to do so during hearings, but the testimony was just so powerful. For a moment, you could feel the political divisions ebb away as we were listening to this heart-wrenching and tearful testimony at times. And one congresswoman who fled political violence in Vietnam said this was really a testament to how much that the U.S. democracy was under threat on January 6th.
You know, January 6th was an attack on our democracy. It was an attack on the peaceful transfer of power, and it was an attack on this Capitol building. But it was also an attack on real people.
One officer said that if you were going to prosecute a hitman, you would also prosecute the people who hired him. Perhaps a reference there to Donald Trump. What will happen in these hearings? Well, we don't know. There will be subpoenas, witnesses will be called. They haven't ruled out the former president, but the bipartisan wrangling really has marred this select committee from the start. As you know, it was meant to be a commission. It was meant to be bipartisan. It didn't pass the Senate. The members put up for this committee in the House were rejected by the Democrat. There are 2 Republicans on it. Liz Cheney, the most famous, the daughter of the former Vice President Dick Cheney, and she broke with her party, lost her leadership positions because she says the Constitution is more important than party.
Although such a commission was opposed by my own leadership in the House, it overwhelmingly passed with the support of 35 Republican members. It was defeated by Republicans in the Senate. And that leaves us where we are today. We cannot leave the violence of January 6th and its causes uninvestigated.
So will this be a moment for Americans to reflect on the fragility of their democracy and also the fact that what happened here on January 6th didn't just reverberate across America but the world as well? Will lessons be learned? We'll have to wait and see in this very divided Washington. Nathan King, CGTN, just outside the US Congress. It was a...
Moving on. Catfish farming is fast becoming a popular venture in Nigeria. The agriculture subsector is set to provide between 150 to 250% return on investment if well managed. CDTN's Kelechi Emakalam reports vast opportunities abound in the sector for budding entrepreneurs.
For a decade now, Emmanuel Nwosu has been running his catfish farm in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The huge aquaculture business has been earning him some good profits. The 62-year-old uses the artificial hatchery method. He produces and supplies to other farmers. He harvests over 60 metric tons of catfish yearly and makes good profits.
If you start from the beginning, in other words, you hatch by yourself, you stock by yourself, you farm by yourself, you sell by yourself, you make more profit. Because by the time the fishes, the hatchery is up to 4 weeks and above, you have not spent up to 10 to 15 naira per one. If you stock from there, begin to feed, you are sure you are going to make more profit. If you are farming yourself, you are sure of making 30% profit. Very sure.
Catfish accounts for 80% of Nigeria's aquaculture output. Fresh, smoked or dried, it's a favorite for many local delicacies and highly sought after by the pharmaceutical industry. Nigerian local fish demand stands at 3.6 million metric tons yearly, but production remains low at 1.1 million metric tons.
Been underperformance of the catfish sector in Nigeria, and so we're not able to meet up with our local demand. There's a huge market for catfish production in Nigeria, even in terms of export, in terms of even local consumption. With the deficit in production, we need at least 400,000 new catfish farmers every year to be able to meet up with local demand.
Nigeria currently exports about 100 metric tons of catfish yearly. An expansion is much needed as it provides a viable option for export earnings.
In the Americas, in the Middle East, and even in the Europe, there's a huge market for Africans that are there, even for Nigerians that are migrated to those countries. They yearn for the catfish, and then there's a huge potential.
Though a profitable venture, catfish farmers complain that factors like the high cost of feeds, climate change, and bacterial infections affect their yield. Nigerian government has been making diversification efforts from crude oil and investing in agriculture. Experts say governments investing in farmers' trainings and localized feed factories will help farmers like Emmanuel Wosu boost production and maximize profits. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria. Over a decade now.
The report takes us to our second break. We'll be back with sports news in just a moment. Stay with us. Over now to sport, where Wabanjul continues to make life difficult for some of the top teams in the GFF First Division League. The Banjul-based team secured a 1-0 win over the Gambia Armed Forces in round 12. Famara Baji watched the encounter at the Independence Stadium in Bakau, and this is his report.
They might not be one of the most experienced sides in the league, but they are a difficult team to play against. Smaller in size but full of technically gifted players, Wabanjul have proved difficult for many of the top teams and were once again a hard nut to crack against the Gambia Armed Forces in this Week 25 encounter. In a game where the focus of both sides is to improve their league standings, Armed Forces tried to destabilize Wabanjul in the opening moments, but Wabanjul survived the early start and started piling pressure on the Khaki boys. In the process, they created but squandered several good scoring opportunities. One of the highlights of this encounter was the eye-catching display of Wabanjul's Mohamed Salih Jallo, one of the most talented and composed youngsters in the First Division League. His movements always left the soldiers struggling to contain him. GAF utilized their physicality to their advantage for most part of the game. Anytime Wabanjul tried to trick, they found it difficult to penetrate the GAF defense. Ultimately, in the 85th minute, Wabanjul's outstanding Mohamed Salih Jallo produced a moment of individual brilliance to score the only goal of the game. The youngster tricked the guard defense before unleashing a powerful drive into the top roof of Bakasisi's net. This is a classic goal with cap of a brilliant performance for the outstanding Wabanjul's number 10. The remaining 5 minutes was not enough for GAF to stage any fight back, as Wabanjul held on to a 1-0 win for Abdunjai and his charges. Famara Baji, GRTS News.
That report by Famara Baji wraps up this news bulletin with me, Momodou Njai. But here is a quick look at our top stories before we take leave of you. His Excellency President Adama Barrow met officials of the National Human Rights Commission and executive members of the National People's Party at the State House in Banjul. COVID-19 coverage in the African media. 12 journalists are meeting in the Senegalese capital Dakar for a regional conference discussing the handling of the pandemic in the African press. And a fresh extension of the TRRC mandate. We found out why the initial date for the submission of the much-awaited TRRC report has been postponed to a later date. Away from home, the Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara and longtime rival Laurent Gbagbo have met for the first time in more than a decade. Plus, catfish farming is fast becoming a popular venture in Nigeria, where vast opportunities abound for investors in the sector. In sports, Wabanjul has pulled out a vital win against the Gambia Armed Forces to boost their chance of a mid-table finish in the GFF First Division. Well, that does it for this edition of the News at 8. Many thanks for joining us. I'll be here at 2200 hours with more news. Until then, stay safe and always follow COVID-19 precautions.